Hello cosplayers and cosplay photographers alike. I'm Bill Darrel, owner and prop maker here at Punished Props. Lately there's been a bit of a controversy and confusion about photography and cosplayers, especially when it comes to figuring out who has the rights to sell photos of said cosplayers. I can understand the confusion. Even as a serious amateur photographer myself, I found that I got a lot of things wrong once I started doing a little bit of research. Let's get one thing straight here. This is an issue of copyright law and photography in the United States. The fact that it applies to cosplayers doesn't change the laws that have been around for a long time for valid reasons, primarily to protect photographers' rights to their own creations. By default, in the United States, when a photographer makes a photo of someone, as soon as that shutter fires, the photographer owns 100% of the copyright. That's to say, the exclusive right to copy, distribute, recreate, and print photos, or to authorize others to do the same. That means that the photographer can sell prints of that photo, and they don't need permission or to pay a percentage of their profits to the model. Now, the cosplayer may have put a ton of work into their costume, and they may feel that people only want to buy copies of that photo because their face is in it. And it's totally cool to feel that way. I mean, people put a ton of work into those costumes. That is, however, completely irrelevant to how copyright law works. So, if you want a different arrangement than that, you must come to an agreement with the photographer beforehand. There are things the photographer cannot do with those photos, including things like using them for promotional material or for endorsement type stuff. For that, they would in fact need a signed model release. Keep in mind that the laws may be vastly different in countries outside of the United States. Also bear in mind that at private conventions like Dragon Con, there may be different rules regarding photography. Many times these rules are printed right on the back of the badge, so make sure you do your research. As a cosplayer, it is super important that you recognize that the photographer owns the rights to the photos that they take of you by default. If you would prefer a different arrangement, discuss and agree upon it before the photo shoot. If you and the photographer can't come to an agreement, then don't do the shoot. If you discover that someone is selling photos of you and you feel like you deserve a cut of that action, but you did not come to an agreement beforehand, then you are out of luck. If you want to completely avoid something like this from happening, unfortunately your only option is to not go out in public dressed in a costume. This is exactly why celebrities hate going out in public. Now, as a photographer, know that you do in fact own 100% of the copyright to your photos. If a model shows up demanding a percentage of your sales after the fact, you owe them nothing. Again, unless you came to a different agreement beforehand. That being said, here are some common scenarios that cosplayers and photographers may encounter. Scenario 1. A photographer snaps a photo of a cosplayer at a public convention like San Diego Comic-Con. The photographer posts the photo on his Tumblr page. Later on, the cosplayer finds that photo and thinks it's totally cool. And then everyone hugs. This is the most common way that things usually go down and what you as a cosplayer should expect most of the time. Scenario 2. A photographer and their cosplayer friend agree to do a private shoot. They go to an off-site location and take some super rad photos without any outside interference. They agree that the photographer is going to use the shots for his portfolio, and the cosplayer gets to use those photos on her Facebook page, provided she links back to the portfolio. They do the shoot, and everyone hugs. This is how I usually do private shoots with my photographer friends. Scenario 3. A photographer has a really neat idea for a photo shoot. He pays a cosplayer to do the shoot, and they gather at a private location. They do the shoot, and the photographer sells prints on his store. The photographer agrees that the cosplayer can use the photos on her Facebook page so long as she links back to the store. And then everyone hugs. Scenario 4. A cosplayer hires a photographer to take some photos of her new costume for the purpose of selling prints. The cosplayer agrees to pay a one-time lump sum fee to the photographer for the rights to print the photos and sell them in her store. They do the shoot, and then everyone hugs. So what's the bottom line? Ignorance and inaction are not valid excuses. Educate yourself on copyright and photography laws in your country or at the private conventions that you are attending. Finally, if you're doing a formal photo shoot, come to an agreement on the usage of the photos with the photographer before the shoot starts. I would like to give a special thanks to professional photographer Darrel from BGZ Studios. He's a guy who really knows his photography and really knows how copyright law applies to his photos. He fielded a whole bunch of my questions about this touchy subject. You can find his amazing work over at bgzstudios.com or look for BGZ Studios on Facebook. I'll put links to those down below. I also recommend you go check out this episode of Cosplay Open Forum right here that dives way deeper into these issues than I have tackled here. What do you guys think about this touchy subject? I realize that everyone probably has a pretty strong opinion one way or the other on this, and I want to hear from photographers and cosplayers alike, so let me know down in the comments. Or you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/punishedprops or Twitter at twitter.com/chinbeard. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and go out there, make some amazing costumes and really cool photographs.